Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B on their new home, ESPN 620.
You miss it, and the Irish have hope. It's good. And Ohio State is going to walk out of Atlanta national champions. The longest, toughest postseason climb in the history of the sport. And after all that, it's Ohio State together at the mountaintop. Champions of college football.
National championship game. Buckeyes win. Thank you to ESPN. Our next guest, and it's always a pleasure to have Phil on the show. It is unbelievable how he has done this year after year after year. Phil, I've been a fan of the magazine for almost as long as I can remember. And my first question to you, as we talk with Phil Steele, college football season ready to get underway, the college football preview. Phil, how is it still a labor of love for you for as long as you have done this?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it has to be now with this damn transfer portal out there. Having 2 portal windows and trying to cram 136 coaches' calls all into the month of May. I could only get to about 126 of them because they all take about an hour apiece. It makes it very hectic for that last month of May. But, the only sport I follow is college football. I don't even watch the NFL. On Sundays, I'm watching replays of the college games. Magazine season starts the Sunday after Thanksgiving. I spend 7 months on this magazine every year. So it is truly my one sport I follow. You ask me NBA, I can't tell you any player. I could tell you maybe LeBron James. Other than that, I don't know of any NBA players. And that's only because he was here locally from Akron, near the Cleveland area.
Yeah. So, Phil, when you break all this down, you talk about your process and just trying to keep up with the Joneses, i.e. the portal, the NIL deals, and then the history that you followed for so many, many years. For you, the essence of college football, what's been the biggest change aside from the movement in college football?
Yeah, the biggest change is definitely the portal and the amount of transactions on the teams. Now, you go back and take a look at the NFL, for example. We just went through and did the NFL magazine, and I looked at some of the rosters because I just wanted to see the amount of players. There's actually more transition in college football than there is in the NFL. So it's really got to the point where teams are bringing in 40, 50 new players. It's a new team each season, especially in the group of 5, because the group of 5 coaches, when I talk to them and go over their teams with them, they're like, you know what? This guy is so good that he won't be here next year. Somebody's going to buy him off our team. And that's exactly how it happens. Wow. They've got 60, 70 new players every year. So it's really, that's been the biggest change in college football. It's been the transfer portal.
And when you look at the top, let's say top 15, the parity that abounds in reference to maybe the NIL money, has that been a big transition? Are you starting to see that more and more as well, too, that maybe the scale's starting to balance out a little bit more because of the NIL money?
Yeah, we might see that. And you're probably talking about Texas Tech, which brought in all that cash with Joey McGuire. And now all of a sudden Texas Tech is one of the prime contenders in the Big 12. So, yeah, I think the NIL does. Now, last year it made teams at a deficit because the colleges that had the biggest bankrolls, your Ohio States, your Alabamas, they could sign anybody they wanted at any time. But now I do think, provided that they put a cap on it and are able to enforce it, that it will level things out and we'll have more national contenders on a yearly basis.
Phil Steele is our guest on the Right Toyota guest line. Phil, we'll get to ASU here in just a moment, but I wanted to ask you this question first. With the Texas-Ohio State game, in your long memory, can you ever remember the so-called number 1 team in the country being an underdog?
First time in the first game of the season, that is.
Yeah.
I think it has happened before, yes. But in the first game of the season, the number 1 team in the country, an underdog, never happened before. So that's and it's pretty interesting though, because Ohio State was the number 1 team in the country, and they're at home for this one. So, and they're the defending national champs. I could see why it happened.
And I think the other thing, too, is Jimmy alluded to, that big game on Labor Day weekend, obviously 0 week going on here. We'll get to that in a second. Have you ever seen a bigger Labor Day opening weekend with so many highly ranked teams playing each other? Jim talked about one playing 2, but all overall, one of the best Labor Day weekends I can imagine many, many years, Phil.
Man, Clemson and LSU, Miami of Florida, Notre Dame, Catholics versus convicts. We got ourselves some matchups here this week. I'm pretty excited. Now, I tell you what, week 0, Kansas State, Iowa State, you're talking about a potential Big 12 title elimination game. The loser put themselves in a 2-game hole, as far as getting to the Big 12 title game. That's a massive game in the first game of the season. Who the heck plays a big game like that in conference play right out of the box?
Well, and then go over to Dublin, and Phil, this is Manuch, being a K-State grad, to keep my eyes on that, but I think you're right.
Former QB at K-State.
Matter of fact, I think page 925, you might have my Auburn stat there. I think, Phil, somewhere in there. But, I mean, I think this is what people are going, okay, look, these kids are making big money. It's big-time football. To open up with these big weekends, it gets the attention pretty quickly the week prior to the NFL starting.
Yeah, and the thing with the expanded playoff, you take a look at Ohio State last year. Ohio State had arguably the best team in the country, most talented team, most experienced team. A lot of players turned down the NFL. They lost 2 games in the regular season. All those players came back because they didn't have a victory over Michigan in their career, and they wanted it. They didn't get it. Guess who the Big Ten champ was last year? Oregon. Well, who was the national champ? It was Ohio State. And I think when you look at Texas against Ohio State in the opening game of the season, the loser is not in any type of deficit as far as chances to win the national title. Even if the loser of that game doesn't make their conference title game, as long as they make the playoff, both teams are extremely talented. There are areas of weakness. Texas, the offensive line, and the inexperience at quarterback. Ohio State, a lot of inexperience. Those go away after 12 games of the season. You're all experienced at that point. I give both a great shot once the playoffs roll around. So that might be the advantage of the 12-team playoff, is the fact that you no longer eliminate teams after 1 or 2 losses.
Phil, take me then locally. Arizona State shocked everybody last year. One of the big reasons, running back Cam Scattaboo, he's now with the New York Football Giants, but they have a terrific QB, Sam Levitt, who's getting an awful lot of attention about the Heisman Trophy. I know you have other players that you believe are going to be in that conversation as well, but let's start first with ASU. Where do you have them in the Big 12?
Well, the Big 12 is naturally the easiest conference in the country to forecast. You know that, right?
You are a funny man.
Easy, cowboy.
Funny man.
Easy now.
That's funny.
There are 7 legitimate title contenders in the Big 12 this year. I would say Baylor, Utah, Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, TCU. Any one of those 7 could win it. The one thing I think will be different in the Big 12 this year. Last year, all the teams at the bottom finished at the top. Teams at the top finished at the bottom. This year, those 7 teams, I said, they're going to finish at the top. And the teams at the very bottom, the teams that are going through 40, 50 transfers like West Virginia, Oklahoma State, UCF, they're going to finish near the bottom. So we will see a little more of the haves and have-nots in the Big 12. However, when I looked at the Big 12 and came up with my forecast, I basically looked at those 7 teams that were at the very top, put them all basically in the same category and said, okay, who's got the most amount of road games against the big boys and who's got the most amount of home games against the big boys? Because home and away is a big difference. And I'll take you to the SEC as an example. Last year, Georgia came in number 1 in the country. Their toughest 3 games of the year were Ole Miss, Alabama, and Texas. And all 3 were on the road. And guess what? They lost 2 of those 3 games. And now this year they get all 3 at home. Part of the reason I picked Georgia atop the SEC. When I look at Arizona State, I love the overall talent. Kenny Dillingham's doing a tremendous job. He didn't have to use the portal as much as he did the first 2 years. This team is stabilizing. Sam Leavitt, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And what would have happened in the playoffs had they had Jordan Tyson available for that playoff game? He's back and healthy this year. The defense looks solid. The thing I don't like about Arizona State is what I just mentioned. They play 3 of the big boys on the road. They have to go at Baylor, at Utah, at Iowa State. And those are 3 pretty tough games all on the road. Baylor, for example, you look at their road games this year, they're against Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Arizona. They have one team again that had a winning record last year in the Big 12, and that's TCU on the road, a much more manageable schedule. So basically I shook it all up in a bag, went with the teams that had the best schedule, but it wouldn't surprise me if any of those 7 won it. And I think that Arizona State, Cam Scattaboo was clearly clearly the MVP of that team, the leader. But I think Sam Leavitt will fill those shoes this year.
Phil, when you look at the Heisman Trophy candidates, as Jimmy alluded to, Sam Leavitt here at ASU, Klubnik, the kid out of Clemson, Arch Manning out of Texas. When you break it down as to who you feel the favorite is, it sounds like you kind of alluded to what you just said, the schedule, who they're playing on a consistent basis, the performance, all the above. Who are you leaning to, or who do you like as far as the Heisman Trophy candidate is concerned?
Yeah, a lot of years coming into the year, I'm sort of torn as to who I like for the Heisman, but this year I definitely have somebody that I would list as a favorite, and it's not your odds-on favorite. It's not Arch Manning. It is Cade Klubnik of Clemson, and I'll explain why. Klubnik, 2 years ago, had a banged-up receiving core. He lost his top 3 receivers prior to the year, and they were depleted. And he had 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and everybody's like, you know what, Cade Klubnik's not that good. Well, guess what? Last year he got those injured players back. They added in a couple of VHT true freshmen. And for those not familiar with the magazine, a VHT is a very highly touted player, one of the top recruits in the country. And all of a sudden, Cade Klubnik had 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So I think to win the Heisman, you have to be really good statistically. Klubnik is playing with my number 2 rated receiving core in the country, my number 2 offensive line in the country, and I feel Clemson's got the best offense out there. Then you look at the schedule. I've got Clemson favored in all 12 games. So if you got a guy that's leading the nation in passing, or Clemson's leading the nation in total offense, and you're undefeated at the end of the year, I think the quarterback wins the Heisman Trophy. And that's why I'm going with Cade Klubnik at Clemson this year.
Okay. Before we let you run, roughly 2 minutes left, I have to ask you this because you've been involved in college football at such a high level for so long. If indeed the SEC and the Big Ten conferences continue to go back and forth at each other, will there be an eventual winner, or are we going to just be out in Nowheresville for another 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I can't imagine that it would go on like that forever. So I got to think, there's going to be a deadline. Things will work out somewhere along the line, and they'll figure it out. So I would say after a year, we'll get this thing settled out.
It's great, Phil. Thank you, man. Thanks for coming on. We always appreciate your time. It is the Bible of all college football. Thank you, Phil. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun talking football with you guys today.
You got it. There you go. Phil Steele. Wow. Great stuff from him. I thought it was pretty interesting, Manuch, what he had to say about ASU and where they are going to play their road games. He found that to be maybe the difference in what happens for them this year. All right, Phil is presented today by, you got it, Peaks Gridiron Getaway. That's right. It is all powered by Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B Gridiron. Now, we got the Cards at the Rams. It is January 4th, SoFi Stadium. Beautiful place to go for a game. We have 2 tickets. Hotel. It's the Westin, by the way, right by the airport, about 2 miles from the stadium. And you get money for airfare, or you can drive. Runner-up. Twin Peaks tailgate for the big game in February at Twin Peaks. $500 Twin Peaks tab for the winner and friends. Included reserve table for 10 for Super Bowl Sunday at any of the 5 Twin Peaks lodges. All you have to do, scan with the QR code. Is that what? QR code. QR code. Thank you. Easy for me to say. The QR code at Twin Peaks, or just text Peaks to 59925. Again, that's 59925. Getaway grand prize will be awarded December 18th. That's December 18th during the Thursday night football game. Once again, a big thank you to Phil Steele. All right, everybody, we're coming right back. Random fact of the day and a little football at 50. Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B, ESPN 620.
It's time to make plans.